What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Built Different with Tucker Speed. This episode, we sat down with Jason Owens, my co-host, and my wife, Tori, and we talked about our upcoming race season, the 2025 BRL season, and made some big announcements. We talked about how to get into racing and kind of the state of bagger racing in the country right now. And there's big announcements coming, so watch the episode and see what we got going on. Before we get started, remember this podcast is brought to you by tuckerspeed.com, your one-stop shop for all of your performance-related parts for your Harley-Davidson motorcycles. I was running out of breath there, sorry. And before we get started, please leave us a 5-star review and give us a follow. Enjoy the episode.
Making power by day, making friends at night. Built different, Tucker Speed. Hell yeah, brother.
That's just my face.
No,
he never say that
he
one.
doesn't even give me that much of a response. He just stares at me.
That's what he does.
Blank stare.
Just the stare of like, you must be the dumbest person I've ever met.
Just like constant
I know.
disappointment.
Yeah. It is,
So
man.
imagine being a daughter-in-law. That goes over really well.
I mean, but you sit there and just chisel at him, though.
I might poke him a little bit.
And yeah.
Like have to take my Maverick Cup into that Chevron-only household.
All right. We rolling?
Yep.
Okay. We're going to go live. So this is a special episode of the Built Different podcast.
Wrong.
We're done with Built Different? What happened?
No, it's Built Different with Tucker Speed podcast.
Right.
I got it right that time.
Glad we have Jordan.
I like Built Different podcast with Tucker Speed. Jordan likes Built Different with Tucker Speed.
It's not that I
podcast.
like it. It's
It's-
that's
that's
what
the
the
name.
name is.
No.
You
I
can't
like
change
the
it at
shop
this
being
point.
called Tucker Shop Speed. That's how I think we should call it.
Oh, man, we're getting off to a good start here. It's an early morning podcast here. This is a special episode. I don't have a special guest. I just have two regular guests.
Whoa.
Not very special. Joined
very
by,
special.
by J.O., my regular co-host, and
What up?
my wife, my co-host in life. And Jordan's behind the mic. He'll have some stuff to say, but this podcast is about all things Bagger Racing League, and we have some news coming up here soon, and we have some questions we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Bagger Racing League in the world right now and where it's at, what we think about it, answer a few questions, and make announcements. So let's just dive into it. Should we just start with the big news?
Yeah.
Let's just jump in. What do you think, Jordan?
Yep.
Thanks, Jordan.
That's a first. Normally he's giving us direction on which way to go.
Yeah. So the big news is for 2025, Tucker Speed is going racing in the Bagger Racing League. Wow. We are building 2 motorcycles currently. We just started the second bike last night. We were here late last night working on it. And when I say build, we're rebuilding my bike that I've been running the past 3-4 years. We've got it torn down to the frame. Going to go through and fix everything that was broken, worn out from seasons past, and making some upgrades and changes to the bike. And I will be piloting that bike this year, I've decided.
Yes.
That's probably the big news. The 2024 season I took off. I was in the broadcast booth with BRL. And
Painful for us.
it was,
Back at the shop, at least.
yeah, definitely. We missed out on the experiences of traveling to the races and going as a team and everything like that. I was able to still get to the races as kind of a working member of the BRL team, which was nice, and it was a fun experience and one that I'll dabble in again in the future at some point when I am done racing, but I'm not done racing, so we're going to go racing. And our second bike, we're going to be building a bike for the Super Street class, and I want to dive into what Super Street is in a little bit, but we're building a bike for that class, and J.O., you're going to pilot that bike.
Right.
Maybe walk us through a little bit about, how we got to where we are today and you on the bike, like how you, where you've been with the racing and the BRL and kind of what made you want to get on a bike.
Right. I mean, I know we hit on this a little bit last night when we did the opener on tearing down the Super Street bike. And, like I said, I've been with you for almost a decade. And, we've been ups and downs. Definitely, working here has brought something for me that I haven't had or been able to experience, and that's the racing. I think that's one of the coolest things about this shop is that, you took what you had growing up, which is, doing the drags, the motocross, and, you definitely transitioned into, the flat track. The Mama Tried was really our first, I think, taste of the Harley racing. I don't know if you really ever had that prior.
No, I'd never raced a Harley of any sort prior to a flat track bike.
Right.
Yeah.
And us, actually getting into that, we had even discussed, I think back then, you guys were going to buy me a Sporty, and all three of us were going to race, when it was you and TJ. And then, I think that had happened a little bit. And then, things, transition and change a little bit there. Fast forward to, of course, I've always loved running with you to the tracks, being kind of the crew chief, the guy to help you out, drive, get there, set up, be that guy that, you could count on, coming off track and helping you out. I've always loved doing that.
Yeah. And you have always been there. I mean, you've been there, like all the racing I've done since we've opened the shop, like you've been there from the start.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's been something I love doing. You've never, I know you always ask me, hey, you ready to go, do another run? It's like, yeah, don't even have to ask me. Always been there. It's that getting to the track, the smells, the people, it just gets you fired up. I think at least us, Tori could probably ring in a little bit. Maybe not the same for her. I know she'd rather be on a beach, but that's kind of, even though we're working, it's almost that region, getting everything just reset inside.
Yeah.
For us, I know for other people, it's not like that, but that's always been that fuel that gets you fired up. Getting into the BRL, you're seeing that we were there at the beginning, and seeing that transition, a bagger kind of stuff that we've been doing all along, throughout our careers riding. I mean, that's, we've always had the suspension setups, the motor, anything that we could, help us out there on the back country corners that we like running. We've that translated. I know for you could probably speak for that huge going from, flat track, I'm sure was fun, but I think this sets the niche, of what we're about here. That the road racing, setting those baggers up for that performance side of what we like doing. Not everybody likes that.
No, for sure. It's definitely a kind of a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
And to kind of touch on that, I mean, me and Jordan went out to Chuckwalla back in 2020. Is that when that was?
Yep.
For the, it was basically, they called it the V-Twin Track Days. And it was just kind of an open invite. There were no such things as, race bikes yet. We went out there. I rode the Road King out there. And then that's when they announced Bagger Racing League, we got super excited about that. We came home and we talked about it, and it felt like that move from racing flat track to racing baggers better aligned with our business.
No doubt.
Because, the flat track was fun, and we were on a Harley, but that Harley was like so far away from what we were riding on the streets and what our customers that are walking through our front door or buying products from us online were buying, that there was a little bit of a disconnect there. It was closer than like racing motocross on a Honda or a Yamaha. but there was still a little bit of a disconnect, and it just seemed to make perfect sense that, bagger racing just really aligned with, obviously, like you said, we were kind of building performance baggers before it was the cool thing to do. I mean, we were putting, suspension and building motors and going fast through the canyons, 10 years ago.
Right.
And so it just made perfect sense. So yeah, that's kind of where, like you were saying, it just made sense. And so yeah, we started going Bagger Racing League in 2020.
Yeah, and I think watching that, especially where it's come from, and you've seen some ups and downs with that, and I really think, when you got on that track, you could see that that's where you fit. The flat track. I always felt you were smooth and steady. Was it what you were maybe really good at? I feel you were good, especially when you got on your 250. I mean, that was night and day difference with the light. The different motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were money on that 250. But then when you got on the track, I saw, okay, dude, this is where he's at. On that pro stock. And then you finally got Tori. It's just funny the transition and the development of that, going from our baby motor, what you had, when you could see that you got the technical on a lot of the other riders out there, you a gap, but then we were getting on them straights, those boys are pulling, because we had just had basically a cammed, 124. And, then when HR decided to say, hey, build a motor so you stop getting pulled on the straights, I think straight got serious, and then you just continue to grow in that, and being there and seeing that and watching that, and then I think it was kind of always like, man, seeing you out there, I'm like, man, I'd love to give that a shot one day, because that just as much fun as, like I've always said, we've always, some guys like the straight touring and getting to a destination, laying down miles. I get excited. Like every time we go up to Trappers and run, when we make that turn, I don't know about you, I always get the butterflies and just that adrenaline hits. So we're about to go hit those corners. And I think everything on all my trips that I've done over these past few decades, I always look for the curviest spots on the map, and let's go run it.
Yeah.
And seeing these tracks, I mean, it's really something I think I'm right now, I go to sleep thinking about it, and I wake up thinking about it, about what it's going to be like, on that.
I'd be interested. I want to ask you maybe, later this year, after this season, what your thoughts are when you turn up Trappers now after being on the racetrack. Because for me, that's how Trappers was.
Yeah.
And then after you go out on the racetrack, there's just nothing. It's like they're going out on the racetrack is Trappers times 10.
I would almost believe it, because I always got amped up when we fire that pro stock up, and then watching you go just brap that thing. I mean, I would get fired up
Just watching
you get on that bike and go, and then start running laps.
Yeah,
it's just.
And not that, I still can go ride Trappers and get excited about it, but it definitely is not anything like racing on a road course,
I
like a
believe that.
prepped, closed course because, when we go run Trappers, there's still a lot of things that run through your head,
Oh, yeah.
Salt, sand, gravel on the streets, oncoming traffic,
Correct.
cop cars.
Yeah. Animals.
Animals.
Is a deer going to run out in front of you?
So all of those things are still running through your head, and basically just imagine if Trappers, they went through and they groomed it, they swept it, it was perfectly prepped, and they closed it at both ends. There was no traffic, and you knew there was no cop cars, and you could go as fast as you want. That's basically a racetrack.
Right.
It's and all you have to do is now you can fully focus on the road in front of you, or like we've been learning, focus on the road ahead of us.
Correct.
And getting through those corners as fast and smooth as possible. So I'd be interested to see where you how you view canyon riding after you go racing.
I could definitely. I bet that it's going to be. It's
It'll
probably going to be
change it.
one of those things where you're just like, okay, now I need to get to the track.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah,
Now let's go rip. Let's get on there and go hammer down.
for sure. Tor, I want to get I would like to hear your honest thoughts on us going racing. I had my reservations, honestly, about Jay getting on the bike.
Well, I was going to ask you that, as your wife and, employee or whatnot, like at all these races, like I'm usually a nervous wreck. Like everyone knows my routine. When he's out on the track, I go stand by myself and I pace, and everybody just knows not to talk to me because I'm kind of doing my own thing. But Tony and I have talked that he's like, I don't know if I could watch Jay on a bike. Like, it just makes me nervous. Like, that's my boy. Like, so I'm just curious, like, putting yourself into our shoes.
I'm not sure I like that position. You know,
Now you got to deal with that. Like, you're at the track having to deal with that, right? I mean, before because you were focused probably on just your marks, the track, your entries, exits. I mean, does that play a different role that we're both out there now?
I feel like, and I don't know, but I definitely feel that there's going to be maybe a sense of maybe a responsibility of some coaching.
Yeah, because I was thinking it's going to be more of a, we're going to be able to actually talk things through.
Right. And,
You
and I
never
think
had that with us, per se, because none of us have ever run track.
No, I mean, and it's definitely like, you go out and you may walk the track. We've walked the tracks before or driven around them, in a car, but you're not really experiencing the racetrack really at speed. And so there's definitely that. But I just think in general, like there's just going to be this sense of nervousness from me that it's one thing for me to go out there and do it on my own. And you kind of just like blank out that kind of fear. You just don't think about it. And I don't know how it's going to feel until we do it, because I've never had to. I've always been the one who kind of blanks that out. I get on the bike, I get focused on the task at hand, and I go do it. And then you guys are kind of left sitting in the pits with that kind of uneasy feeling or whatever. I guess I just when we decided that you were going to go racing, I just had, and I think I had told you I was real nervous about you being on the bike, like just worried that, you might get injured, you might get hurt, and just thinking, I don't want that. So yeah, I mean, and I think that's where Tori's at. Now she might have it twice, just.
Well, I think what you guys need to discuss, honestly, is I think the main question here is you coming off really a huge injury, one that puts you down in ways that you didn't know. What is that like both of you guys can talk about that. I mean, you've got the one side where, you were taking care of this guy for that year. And then now granted, okay, it's not the flat track, road racing is just as dangerous. How do you feel with what you saw him go through getting back on? And then you're going to have to answer, on the flip side, what are you thinking getting back on to actually making the decision to pilot this thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's scary. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that it makes me nervous, because I don't think that he's at 100%. And I was nervous about him racing when he was 100%.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I know that he loves it. There's, and like I said, I finally put my foot down on the flat track because that's where kind of the major injuries had come from.
Right.
So I just asked him to kind of meet me in the middle there. Like, I'm 110% in with BRL, but like, need to be done with the flat track. And that injury was tough. Like, it was tough on our household, personally, financially, emotionally. I enjoyed the race season last year because we still got to be at all the races, but I got to spectate as a normal spectator, which
you didn't have that stress.
Yeah, but it's like you get to watch and actually enjoy the races and, root for, all of our friends out there. But
right. So you don't actually, when he's out there, I mean, I know you got that fear, but you don't have mean, you are, of course, you're rooting for him,
Oh, for sure.
but
it's also
it's
there's
not fun to
just-
watch then. And so it's kind of,
For me, not as much because I'm counting laps. Every
You look at
person that
times.
comes by, I know where he is on the track,
Right.
and who was in front of him and who wasn't. And
yeah.
There better be nobody in front of me.
you said it, not me.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I'm excited, and like I said, I know how much he loves it and how important it is to him. It's fun for me to be able to see him do something that he loves like that because he works super hard here, and it's one of, I think the older he gets, it's harder to kind of find things that get you fired up. But I definitely
true.
feel like coming back from these races, it gives him a revived love for what he does. In the 60 hours a week he's here, and
Yeah.
so, I mean, even his dad's been like, pulls me aside and is like, okay, you need to put a stop to this. And I tell him every single time, like, that's not my place.
Yeah.
That's just not how, I guess, our marriage works. Like, I just trust him. And all I asked him when he said he wanted to go racing was that to make me to do two things. One, we got our will and trust and estate all set up. That
Yeah.
was a requirement. And the second one is I asked him to not go racing if he didn't feel comfortable.
Right.
Because I just didn't want him out there riding scared. And that was the only thing I asked him. Like, I can't tell where he's at. He's the only one that knows. And that's the only thing I asked of him was make sure you're mentally and physically in a position where you can do it and be safe and
Right.
keep everyone around you safe. So,
I mean, that's a good segue into your side because, you made a point of him getting that mental focus back and not being scared. And then, you went on and it probably put a change in our plans because you found a place where we can go try to run a month prior to get, for me to get, the race course completed. And then for you to try to get that mental edge back on getting back on. So I guess walk us through, what you're trying to do to prep to get back on a bike, because it's got to be, you've now got to get into that GP mode, what those boys do, where they can just lay down a bike, bounce right back up, get on and go and not even think about it. That NFL cornerback mentality of, you get beat, you just got to get back up and put that
Get back after it.
correct
get
me
back
if I'm
after it. So
wrong, but I think that was the first, wreck. There's been wrecks, there's been injuries, but that was the first one
yeah,
where I think it made him question, like, am I going to continue doing this? And I think that's what scared me was normally, he's back on the bike with broken ribs and injuries.
Yeah.
But this was the first one. He'd also made the comment that was the first wreck in which when, he looked back, he was thinking, what about my wife and kids?
right.
And at first I was a little offended, like, seriously, that was the first time you'd ever thought about what we go through but then it kind of made sense because every other time he knew how he was physically and mentally, and he knew
Right.
that he was fine. It's different when, you're a wife or, his daughters are there. But I think
Yeah.
that was the first one that ever made him question, like, I don't know if I'll get back on a race bike.
Yeah, that was probably a game changer for this guy. I mean, like you said, he's been boot tough ever since I've known him. Worked through so many injuries. I mean, that one in Sturgis, you had that broken shoulder. He just straight slinged it, and then he out there running one-handed. I think when we went on those boonies out there at what was that, Camp Zero?
Zero, yeah.
Type deal. You got out there a little bit, right? And still,
But yeah, his arm was broken, and he's like, well,
Yeah.
let's just finish our week at Sturgis. And
yeah,
like,
and run it. I mean, this one, dude, that was a nasty one, man. I mean, with
It was, and it definitely changed my mindset. And I think to answer your question about, where I'm at in my head, am I confident? Am I comfortable? Am I, to a level that I feel like I can go race? In my mind, I am. At least sitting here right here now in this chair, but I can't answer that until I actually throw a leg over that bike and go out on a race course and get up to speed. And that's why I think, we're going to try and do some track days before the race season starts to really try and, shake the cobwebs, kind of see where my head's at when I strap on that helmet and I get out there and I get to speed, and where is my head? And I I don't know that. I can't sit here and tell you right now. I'd be lying if I did, if I said I'm going to be 100% comfortable and confident going into that first corner. I can't say that because I haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go find out. I'm confident to at least to make the effort and go try. You know what I mean? And I think that it'll take a track day or two for me to really start to kind of, get out of that. I mean, the professional guys, the MotoGP, Moto America professionals, where they wreck and they hop up and they run back and hop on a second bike and just as if nothing happened. And obviously they're doing that without an injury.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm at. My head's in it. I have committed fully in my mind that I'm ready. I'm still, my leg at this point is not 100%. I don't think my leg will ever be 100%. I think my leg will be 75% at best. Is just knowing, how it is today. I know I can ride, and I think I can ride pretty fast with my leg being at 75%.
Yeah.
But I'm still working on it. I'm still trying to, work out and get it stronger and get it, working better. And we're still working on that. We're a few months away from hitting the track for the first time.
Yeah.
But I'm ready in my head. I'm ready to go. I'm excited about it. I'm stressed about it. We got two bikes to build in a short amount of time. And so it's going to be a lot of work over the next, 8-9 weeks to get these bikes built. We've got a lot of companies that are already on board and helping us out. So thanks to all them. We'll make an official list of all those companies once kind of everything's finalized and the bikes are done. I just don't want to misspeak today on who is and who isn't in the program.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. We're going racing. We're excited. I'm excited. I know you're excited because you text me nonstop. I can't tell if she's excited. I don't know.
I'm excited. Like Jay said, I love the travel portion. I love being at the track with our team. I love the friends that we have in BRL. I love that whole idea. It is nerve-wracking for me. So when I tell you I want a vacation and you're like, we just got back from this track or that track, that was a vacation. I'm like, that's anything but.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. I think it'll be fun to get back out there. I know as much as you loved being in the broadcast booth, I know it was a little bittersweet sitting up there and watching these guys and watching them on these highs as they come off the track. But no, I'm excited. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I think Jordan's excited. Oh, he wasn't listening.
Yeah. Straight wife mode.
No, I think it's good. When we have a few crew members lined up, we're still working out our guys here at the shop who's going to kind of be part of the race team. We're still kind of working out, because it's a commitment, and these guys work a lot of hours here, and the race program is kind of an after hours kind of program, and so we're still working that out. We do have Jake Hargrove going to crew chief for us this year. Our ex employee who's in Tennessee for a couple of years, but he's going to come to the races and basically, I mean, he really is a badass crew chief. Mm-hmm. So when I talked to him and told him we were going racing and asked if he had any interest in coming to the races and kind of crew chiefing, because you're not going to be part of that crew anymore. So we're losing a crew member and gaining another bike to kind of keep track ready and be making changes and making sure it's ready. So I'm super excited to have Jake.
That's gonna help out huge, man.
It really. I told Tori straight up. I'm like, if Jake says no, I'd be real nervous. Of who's going to step up and fill that role.
Right.
So I was stoked that Jake's going to be there. So yeah, we're putting pieces together. We're getting ready. Maybe let's jump into. I wanted to go over Super Street. I really want to talk about the Super Street class. That's the class we're building your bike and you're going to be running. And I think that honestly, the BRL really did a good job when they created and introduced the Super Street class for the 24 season.
Because that's what's really that was what really probably lit the fire.
I think it was it filled in the gap because And let's just jump into it, and we'll get to the listener questions after that. But let's just talk about Super Street and what it was. I think in the beginning of BRL, to kind of go backwards, there were two bagger classes. There were Bagger GP, and there was Pro Stock Bagger. Bagger GP being really kind of if you read the rule books, the rules on the motorcycles were basically the same for the two classes. Really, the difference between the classes was really kind of like professional rider or amateur rider. And I was no professional road racer, so I ended up being in Pro Stock. I do think that initially the BRL thought that the Pro Stock motorcycles were not going to be as heavily built as they were.
Yeah.
And they definitely, there was a lot more in the first season. Some of those Pro Stock bikes weren't as heavily built. But with any type of racing, those bikes progress.
Yeah, that's what
everybody
happened.
goes home.
Yep.
And yeah, they might have had, like a Steve Chamberlain has a bike who is, he rode to the track, but every race he's making it more racy and doing more modifications, right?
Right.
And with a couple of years in BRL, that Pro Stock class and the level of the motorcycle within the Pro Stock class, it became very well built.
Correct.
Which kind of made this gap of so a guy wants to, we're trying to get new riders.
Yeah.
So if a guy wants to get into BRL or get into racing baggers, it was really hard for him to put a motorcycle together that's competitive, because he had to invest in the motorcycle and then a lot of money to develop a motorcycle that's really well built. Mm-hmm. And it discouraged, I think, a lot of people. I think a lot of people that didn't have the funding to kind of keep up with that progression kind of fell away.
Yeah. You see a couple of them. You guys just mentioned it. Who's the old boy on the red Road Glide?
Doug.
Doug. I mean,
Yeah.
probably guys like that.
Yeah.
Kind of squeezed out a little bit.
Yeah, and he just, made, for whatever reason, I think, I've had talks with Doug, but he definitely, it was hard for him to stay competitive and didn't want to continue to pour money into this motorcycle. Was happy with his bike, but it became not competitive.
Right.
So, and it was discouraging new guys from coming into the sport. So, kudos to Rob Bidas for kind of seeing that gap and creating the Super Street class, which the rules on the Super Street class motorcycle are very limiting on what modifications you can do, making it easier for guys to put a bike on the track that is competitive.
Right.
It really is supposed to be, if you have a nice built performance street bagger, it's very easily converted to a super street race bike.
Yeah, and we saw that at Willow. That one dude from Kentucky had his street glide out there. That he
it's definitely
rode
I
the track.
think Philip Doty is his name.
And did decent out there.
And he was out there kind of ripping, holding his own.
Yeah.
On a bike that honestly looks like he could probably ride it to work the following Monday.
Right.
And that's the beauty in that class is that you're not going to be absolutely obliterated by going out there and lining up against a Cody Gilmore or even a Rubens House on your commuter street glide. You know what I mean? It's making it I think it's what bagger racing in the country needed. Is it needed an entry level, a limited class to make it attainable for a lot of people. And I've talked to Rob a couple of times, and it sounds like that this Super Street class that you're going to be riding in is going to be the largest grid in the BRL this year.
That's going to be
cool. There's a lot of people building baggers to get into that class right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the sport needed is it needed a segue, an entry level class, and whether the guys just race that class forever and they stay there, or if they progress into Pro Stock and maybe even into GP at some point. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So
this guy like Jake Masters, that dominated that Super Street last year, because he's rolling. He's going to be in your class.
He's going to move up to bagger, Pro Stock bagger,
right. Yeah.
In my class this year, and and obviously Jake has he rides for a well-established team that knows how to put a motorcycle together, the Suburban Motors team, And obviously, he was able to kind of dominate the class on that bike, but now he's moving up.
Yeah.
So that leaves, he was the champion in Super Street, so it kind of leaves that door open.
Right.
Who's going to be the next Super Street champion?
Yeah.
At the end of the season, if it was us, I'd be stoked.
Yeah.
But it kind of leaves that opportunity there. Who's going to step up and be the new dominant bike in the class, and it's going to be exciting to see. So Super Street is just that. If you're a guy that wants to get into racing, Super Street is that class. The one challenging thing I think about BRL is that it's kind of a national circuit. So no matter where you live, there's going to be a certain amount of travel required,
Right.
and the expenses that come along with that just to get to the races.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the hardest part about it. It really is. It's a blend of kind of professional and amateur racing in one organization. And for amateurs, it's really hard to bite off having to drive halfway across the country for a race.
Yeah, no doubt.
But-
chews up a lot of expense.
It does. It definitely does. But I'll tell you this, it is definitely worth it. And the BRL will welcome you with open arms and take care of you and come in and, there really is a core kind of BRL family, a lot of guys that have been there.
Yeah. Just have your transponder
Yeah, put your transponder
and
on.
sign
make
up
sure- make sure
officially.
it's working.
so you don't get the ladies up there fired up.
Yeah. So
And so they can track you.
yeah, and to kind of touch on or to kind of finish up on the Super Street class, you touched on it earlier. We started filming the teardown process of our Super Street motorcycle last night.
And should we kind of, we didn't really we should probably tell the audience the transition of that platform, because we had a different platform in mind before we got the one currently.
Yeah. So there was a whole kind of thing that happened here at the shop with the bike that we are now building as our race bike. I just want to tease real quickly. I want to just tease and let everybody know to keep an eye out for it. Is that we started filming a video last night of the teardown process of that motorcycle, and we're going to build. I don't know how many episodes it's going to be. I think anywhere from 5 to 8 episodes. We're going to kind of chalk it up into, kind of the key components. What is needed to build a Super Street class race bike. And last night's episode that we started is basically the teardown. And in that video series, we're going to kind of dive in deep about, what's required, what you have to have, and what you can do, how far you can go within the rules. And then you can kind of find out what fits in your budget, what, fits into your needs. And try and find if you can land between that minimum and that maximum build within the class.
Because,
I mean, and to be honest to our viewers, we're basically going to build on the maximum side.
Yeah,
of the class.
I was about to say that, we're doing this Tucker Speed suburban motor probably style, and going down to the frame, and it is not an easy task.
Not easy and not cheap,
and not something that the average guy needs to do.
And it is not needed. It's legal, and we're going down to the frame. I guess essentially the reason we're going to the frame is so that we can powder coat it.
Yeah,
we're going to be painting our motorcycles. We'll have 2 identical race bikes. Be powder coating the frames the same color, painting all the bodywork the same color. I mean, we're building it as a team, but it's
this year.
What's that?
New paint scheme.
Yeah, we will have a new paint scheme,
and
we'll be doing a new unveiling of our race bikes, probably sometime in March.
Or April, yeah. But then Tony and I are gonna try to give a go of painting these things.
Yeah,
we're going to try and do everything in house.
We're going to try and paint in house, just to save. I would rather. I don't want to pay someone to paint our bikes and then we go out and we wreck them and we tip them over and we beat them up and we got to come home and pay someone to paint it again.
Right.
I want to use that money for more go fast parts.
Right.
And save some money on the paint. So yeah, we are going to paint them ourselves.
So don't be
Please don't judge.
Don't judge. Don't be saying, "Oh, was that your 10-year-olds freaking helping you guys out?"
Your little tyke first paint set.
So yeah, watch for our YouTube series on how to build a super street motorcycle or how to get into Bagger Racing League, because that stuff will start dropping in the next few weeks or month. We haven't decided exactly when they're going to drop, but just stay tuned on our social, Instagram, Facebook, threads, and we'll keep you guys up to date on when that stuff's coming and help educate you guys on what's needed to build a bike and get into racing. So let's jump into a few questions. I think we have 4 or 5 questions that I wanted to kind of go over. Our first one from our buddy Austin Shook Soda on Instagram. He asks, what is the cost someone can reasonably expect to enter the sport? There's not a direct answer to that. I wish I could say expect to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, or whatever it may be. I think that the answer to that question could be as cheap as less than $10,000, and that's including buying a motorcycle and then putting the pieces on it that would be required to get it raceable. And I think that you could spend upwards of $20,000, $30,000, maybe even $40,000 on a really well prepared super street motorcycle. And then let's just talk super street, because obviously if you're getting into it, that's probably where you're going to land in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Kind of an attestament to how cheap it can be. This season, Chris Rivas, shout out to Chris. He was racing Bagger Racing League, and then he kind of took a break, and then he decided to come back and race in Super Street this year. And he raced the first couple of rounds, and he built a bike over last winter. Basically, he found a wrecked motorcycle on, Marketplace or eBay or maybe just local. I'm not sure where he found it. And fortunately, he had a handful of parts that he had laying around in his garage just because of who he is and what he does. But with a handful of parts that he already had and some stuff just kind of shopping the used marketplace, was able to put together a raceable motorcycle and a very competitive motorcycle for about $5,000 to $6,000. That's including the bike. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Granted, he had a handful of parts already laying around.
Right.
So that's an extreme case. But, if you're a guy that maybe is into motorcycles and you got maybe an old sport bike kicking around, still the suspension off of it, still the brakes off of it,
Maybe
or
wheels.
a set of 17-inch wheels.
Yeah.
So,
because we've been fortunate on this build to an extent that we have a lot of parts laying around to put on that one, even from your pro stock.
yeah,
that you're not utilizing.
our pro stock bike that, has progressed through the years, and there's been a lot of pieces that we've taken off of it. And that we're able to now, let's just use that on the super street bike.
Right.
So yeah, we kind of have that advantage. So it works out nice. So to kind of answer your question, I mean, if I was not a shop, if I was just a hobbyist, a privateer, if you will, in my garage wanting to build a bike, I definitely would be buying. Really what you need is a good solid frame and motor package. And then kind of go from there. Find a bike that's maybe wrecked, has some body work that you can replace with some race cut bags. Hoppy's starting to make some race cut bags, and you don't need to buy all OEM, like we're finding, the bike we're building, it needed a new fairing.
Right.
I'm not going to buy a OEM fairing. I'm going to buy one that's, off eBay or a used one, for a few $100. Mm-hmm. So you don't need to have OEM stuff. Buy the cheap stuff on Amazon or eBay. I don't normally promote buying your parts on Amazon or eBay. Normally I'd say, hey, buy quality parts from tuckerspeed.com, right?
Right.
But I think that there are certain scenarios where those parts make sense, and that would be one of them. So to answer Austin's question, anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 for a well-equipped super street motorcycle. And really that's going to depend on the motorcycle you start with.
Yeah.
If you go out and find a bike for sub $10,000, and then you put some nice parts on it, you could definitely be into a bike for around $20K, a very well-built motorcycle.
Or if you've already got the bike and it's your normal.
If you got that,
Yeah.
then yeah, just convert it. And so yeah, it's definitely an expensive sport though. We're definitely taking motorcycles that are not built for the track. So there's a lot of things that you got to do: brakes, suspension.
Right.
And anybody wondering like the most important things to build, don't go spend $10,000 on a motor yet.
Yeah. Get your suspension.
Get your
and
suspension
brakes
and your
is
brakes,
key.
and maybe just throw a cam in that motor. But suspension and brakes are going to be where you pick up speed.
Right.
And then from there you can continue to maybe add horsepower and but brakes and suspension are key. Getting ground clearance, lean angle, getting that bike as high as we can. And in a super street class, that is basically limited to +2 over
Correct.
stock height. So you can't go any higher than that. So really get yourself 2 inches higher than stock. Get your foot controls up in the air, away from the ground. Get your saddlebags away from the ground. Get everything that's going to scrape, take it off or make it higher.
And probably you said not to scrape. If the Super Streak boys, they have to take off their kickstand, correct, when they come on track?
Yes.
So that'd be one thing for them to, no lights, and then that
Yeah, no
kickstand's
lights,
got to come off.
kickstands, belly pans, safety wiring, all the pieces that, if came loose, oil's going to spill or be catastrophic, like a axle or brake hardware. You definitely need to have all that stuff safety wired. That's kind of some of the minimum things required is that belly pan. A lot of guys ask, what's the purpose of a belly pan? It really is an oil catch. The last thing the racetracks want is a bunch of oil on their racetracks. That is definitely dangerous. So in the event of someone having a catastrophic failure of their motor, say a transmission grenades and explodes the case, or a rod goes through the bottom of your crankcase and there's just a massive loss of oil just suddenly. That belly pan is meant to kind of catch that and hold some of it from hitting the racetrack so that you can safely get off the race course, get off in the grass, get in the dirt, get off the asphalt so that someone doesn't come through there. And the belly pan is just that, to catch most of that oil before it hits the racetrack. So those are some of the minimums. Next question, Chico writes in and asks, what kind of money and experience necessary to be a rider? Lots of money, no experience. No, or vice versa. If you have lots of experience but no money, you could probably find someone who has a motorcycle that you could go ride. So I guess, hopefully you've got both. I guess best case is you have both. If you only have one or the other, you could build your own bike and just go get the experience.
Yeah.
But I think maybe what he's alluding to is, obviously we talked to Austin's question about what it takes to build a bike. So we're talking at least $5,000 to $20,000 to build a well-equipped super street bike. Obviously, getting to the races is going to cost you a little bit of money. The travel, however far you got to go, you got to buy race tires.
Then you got to look at suit.
Suit,
you got to have
boots,
gear.
gloves.
That's
the
probably
correct
what
gear. That's a good
$2,000.
Yeah,
maybe?
to get a full race suit,
helmet.
a Snell approved helmet, gauntlet race gloves,
Boots.
race boots, possibly even some sort of airbag, AirTech system to ride. It's not required, but definitely.
I love Alpine Stars.
Definitely.
All of their gear, dude. Tech Air's hands down money.
So definitely could expect to spend at least probably $200 to $2,500 in safety gear, and then obviously
Fees.
race entry fees.
But yeah,
Like I said, fuel to get to the racetrack, race gas, entry fees. So you could definitely be into, obviously a lot of the expense comes right up front by building the motorcycle, buying all that safety gear. And then, throughout the season, you've got travel expenses, race fuel, truck fuel to get you there, entry fees, stuff like that. So it's easily a couple $1,000s a race weekend minimum after you've built the bike and bought all your safety gear. So, but on the experience side, Jay, like you've never lined up and raced anything
No, I have not.
from a bicycle, a motorcycle, a race car, an RC car. Like you've never raced. I mean, this is going to be it.
It's going to be it, man. So,
Not even a foot race, Owens.
yeah, well, okay, maybe. Yeah, I've probably done a foot race. That's a good point.
So you've lined
Yeah,
up.
I have
Okay.
lined up. Yeah, Red Rover. Does that count? Dodgeball.
In your case,
Yeah.
yes.
So, and to touch on that a little bit, if you are a new racer and trying to get into it, you do need to take a new racer class. There's a lot of different road racing organizations around the country, depending on where you live. You could find those, and most of them will offer a new racer school. Basically, what that is it gives you a road racing license, an amateur road racing license. The class kind of consists of usually a day. It's usually a day class. You show up, you'll typically spend an hour or so in the classroom with an instructor, kind of giving you the basics. A lot of it is very safety oriented, what you can and what you can't do on the racetracks, what the flags mean, what you should do when you see those said flags, how to properly and safely enter a race course and also exit, and also kind of proper, race lines. Really what you want to be out on the racetrack is what's the right word? Predictable. If you're kind of riding erratic and kind of all over, the people coming up behind you, because if you're a new rider, you're probably going to be getting passed by faster riders, right? Like that's a given. And the last thing you want is, to be like starting to enter a corner and there's a guy coming up behind you that's fast, and it's that guy's responsibility to safely pass you. But you don't want to like all of a sudden make a hard, dart to the inside. Like you want to be smooth and predictable. And that's really the key is. And so those new racer schools, about an hour of class time, you'll go out on track, you'll follow your instructor. He'll usually tell you to stay right on his rear tire. He's not going to go at speed. The first time on the track, you're probably going to go out and you're probably going to do 50 miles an hour, kind of just coast around. And he's going to say, hey, we're going to follow the race lines. Study where I'm going. And then you're going to come back and you're going to go back into the classroom for another hour, talk about some more stuff. You're going to go back out on the racetrack, and you're going to do that about 5-6 times throughout the day. Classroom, racetrack. And by the end of the day, he's going to let you pass him, and he's going to follow you and chase you. If you're doing something wrong, he'll probably pass you back and say, hey, follow me, watch what I'm doing, kind of correct any errors. And so it's very easy in that sense. Sign up for a new racer school. Go get a license, get educated on how to safely navigate a racetrack, and then just go start gaining experience.
'Cause that's what we're going to do in March. That's our goal.
That's what we're doing next
do
month
that.
or in 2 months is to go for me to kind of shake the cobwebs, you to go out and get your race license and
then
get
us
some
try to-
track experience.
Now, on that Saturday, is that both of us would line up together? Or is that two different?
No,
we'd
we'd be
both
lining
there?
up together.
So, see, I think that'd be kind of cool to be able to,
That would be fun.
to try that out. Yeah.
So a little bit of money or a lot of money, and really no experience necessary to get into it. Find a racer school, get a bike that's track ready, and go take. If you go take the school, you do have to provide your own motorcycle. They don't.
Right.
There might be some that maybe there's some organizations that do allow you to ride theirs, but in my experience, you normally have to show up with a track ready motorcycle.
Because Tony you ran the Sporty and the Road King.
That's when I went to the track day, but then when I went to Willow Springs to get my license with ARMA, I just was on the Road King.
Yeah.
And there was I think 6 guys in the class with me that day. I was the only Harley. There was a couple of guys on some different, sport bikes of different brands. One guy on a vintage Honda.
So you got different, you got a broad, mix of.
And honestly, a lot of the guys that were in the class, I think there was a young guy, but most of them were probably 40, 50-year-olds.
Oh, right on. Fit right
So
in.
don't let age deter you either. Don't tell yourself that you're too old. Just get a bike ready and go out there and get your license and go
I
racing.
mean, hell, look at Clibbins.
Yeah, look at me. Prime example.
Next question real quick.
Love you, Harris.
My boy Mike, the God King 7 on Instagram. I guess we kind of just answered his question. He asked, how was the licensing process? How long did it take before your first BRL King of the Baggers race? Just that. When I was in 2020, me and Jordan went to Chuckwalla and they announced BRL. They said you need to get a race license. We came home, we bought a bike, started building it. My race bike was not ready when I needed to get my license, so I rode my Road King. We made a trip out to Willow Springs, spent a day out there, or 2 days. I was there Friday, Saturday. Spent Friday in the class doing the new rider school, got my license. I stayed there and raced with them in one of their classes on Saturday just to get some more seat time and track time and get comfortable on the track.
How was that after you did the licensing and then lined up?
You know, in that class, and you got to realize this was 2020, so there weren't very many
Harleys out there.
Harleys. I didn't line up. I lined up basically in a class that I technically fit in. It was like, I can't remember the name of the class, Thunder something, but it was basically a V-twin class. And there was like a 999 cc and smaller V-twin class, and then a 1000 cc and larger. And so I lined up in that 1000 cc and larger class with a bunch of, I think there were some Ducatis, some KTMs, some and like a Suzuki SV1000. And I wasn't really there to race them.
Yeah, you're just kind of.
I lined up at the back of the back of the grid, and really just wanted to get some actual race experience. I wanted to take a green flag, launch off the start, go into the corner with the pack, and then I kind of let them do their thing. And I basically just navigated. I just spent the 8 laps or whatever it was, just getting some seat time, really just getting comfortable on the bike, trying to learn body positioning, focus on race lines, how to enter and exit the corner. And obviously I was still on a street legal motorcycle. I mean, we had the lights taped up, and I mean, it wasn't track prepped at all. I mean, I was scraping floorboards and stuff. So,
Right.
But really just kind of like getting comfortable with being out on the racetrack. So the process is fairly easy. Take a racer class. You can normally sign up and race with that group because it'll be, those new racer schools will be on a race weekend.
Gotcha.
So you'll take the racer school on Friday. They'll have a race typically on Saturday, so you could stay and race with them and get some experience. They'll typically, I had to do it, I had to wear like a bright blue t-shirt over my race suit on Saturday, which just indicates, hey, this is my first race. So the other racers on track, it's just kind of like, hey, when you're coming up to pass this guy, realize he's a new racer, be cautious. He's been instructed, he's taken the class, but still, kind of be cautious. And it's just a safety thing.
Yeah.
The racetracks are really big on safety. It's a dangerous sport, and we don't need to, have unnecessary dangers out there. So, a lot of that falls on the racers to do what you're supposed to do, be where you're supposed to be, and don't go, I mean, obviously, like you would never... If you have a mechanical or an issue with your bike, you're instructed, get off of the asphalt, get out of the race course, get into the grass, get into the dirt, so that if people coming by aren't going to come around a corner and you're sitting in the middle of the track broadside.
Right.
I mean, it's very dangerous. So obviously it makes perfect sense when you hear it, but it's amazing that, a lot of people get into that scenario, and if they haven't been instructed, they'll just sit in the middle of the race course. So that's the importance of taking a race school, is to just know proper etiquette.
Right.
Obviously, if you have a mechanical, you never would want to go backwards. Say the track, and that's the thing. A lot of times there's a way to enter the race course and exit it, and that's in the same part of the racetrack. And then you have, depending on the course, 1.5 miles, 2.5 miles all the way around. And say you have a mechanical just after turn 1. Obviously, the quickest way for you to get it back off track would be to come back to pit out, but that means you're going to navigate the racetrack backwards. Well, that's a big no-no. That'll get you kicked out of racing.
Right.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Do what you got to. If your bike doesn't run, just wait. Someone will come get you. If your bike runs, depending on how well it's running, obviously if it's leaking oil, stay off the racetrack.
Right.
All those types of things. So there's a lot of stuff to know, but the licensing is fairly easy, fairly quick. To get an amateur race license and go racing. So pretty easy. Let's just touch on one more question. Tyler at ODB Racing wanted to know, the best way to get some sponsorship or help as racers, and as a business owner, what would I expect to see if I was sponsoring someone? Sponsorship is hard. Amateur racing is very hard. I think as a business owner, really, if I say, hey, I will give you X amount of money or X amount of parts to help you go racing, and I expect you to give me, basically what we want as business owners or brands is eyes on our brand. That's what we're paying for. And at the amateur level, that's really hard to do. And obviously, you know, some social media content can go a long ways. You know, maybe it's, you know, if it's a brand like Tucker Speed, maybe that racer has, you know, some flyers or maybe coupons to save money on our website that they could hand out at the racetrack to spectators and fans, stuff like that. You really have to get creative on, you know, ways to try and bring value to your sponsors. The last thing you want to do is be like, hey, brand, whatever, give me this and that. You have to work really hard to maybe, you know, prove to them that it was worth the money. The more you can give them, the better. Photos, videos, social media shout outs, all those types of things. Take care of your sponsors and they'll continue to take care of you. But it is tough. It's really tough because there's limited eyes on amateur racing. That's just the reality of it. So, but Tyler's been doing it a long time. He's one of those dudes that's a privateer. He's doing it all on his own. He shows up in his pickup truck with his race bike and he's making it happen. And he goes out and is fairly competitive and has a good time. And he's actually pretty fast. So kudos to him.
I have one quick question. I didn't write in.
If I let you go over an hour, Levi's going to be really mad.
I'll send him a Dr. Pepper.
Shout out to Levi.
You asked me kind of how I felt and what my thoughts were.
Now you had time to think about it?
No.
Oh.
I feel like I tell you plenty what's on my mind. I'm kind of curious how the conversation went in the Owens household. What was Mills kind of, how did that
Mills is
all play
Jay's
out?
wife.
Yeah.
Her real name's Melissa.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I mean, it was probably one of those.
And she's been at some of the races.
Yeah,
she kind of knows.
Yeah, I've been to a few. You know, she's probably cut along your cloth. You know, with the motorcycle part of life. It's kind of my thing. You know, she's always said, hey, one of us has got to stay alive for the kids. Mm-hmm. You know, because I'm kind of one of those adrenaline junkies. I like going fast. I love motorcycles. I love blasting down a mountain in the winters, you know, to get that fix. She was probably hesitant, you know. I just went down last year. She saw that when she was behind me, and my family saw that happen. And it was one of those freak accidents. I bounced right back up, and I was ready to go, you know. And she was like, "No, you're done. You're trailing that bike back." But I think on the track, man. I mean, I don't think she's too keen on it. She's like you, supports what I want to do, you know. And you know, we had some talks kind of back and forth. I think the one thing, you know, I mean, she wants, of course, me to be safe, and which it's going to be a hard one, but. When you ride two wheels, there's always that potential, whether you're probably on the track or out on the street. You know, I think the main thing was just having affairs in order. You know, I mean, it's kind of one thing. I mean, the one thing is like, yeah, I need to know all the numbers to the accounts and everything, where everything. Like, come on, man, you're already thinking way too. That was one of the conversations because that comes up. You know, if you know what happens to you, you know, I'm sure you guys had to go do what you just said, a living will, estate planning and all that. I mean, she's even worried. I'm looking at race insurance as well. That's one thing that I've got to have, you know, just in case something goes south. You don't have to battle insurance to get fixed up, you know, because sometimes the private insurances won't cover you. So that's something to think about as well, probably. I mean, I think, honestly, she wants me to go have fun too. So I think, I don't know if that answers, you know, kind of some of the conversation we had. You're looking at no kidding what can go wrong. You got to discuss that, I think.
Because I think we were both a little naive with it all, thinking all the other injuries weren't that big of a deal.
Right.
And that Durango one just seriously threw us for a loop. And so I think you start kind of reevaluating. And I think that, you know, you and Mills being so close to our family kind of, you know, got front row seats to that chaos for us too.
Yeah. I mean, it's eye openers on all ends. And I think something like that, you as a family, or if you're by yourself, you have to think about those things, you know, when you're, but I think most of us on that ride, it's already in our head. You know, if you have a significant other, it's probably in theirs too, especially if they've been through an incident, you know, because you've been there. My wife was there in 2010 when I got hit head on, you know, and I was down for almost 2 years on that, you know, recovering from injuries. But, I mean, I think that accident, you know, those accidents that I've had is what makes her nervous mounting up even on the daily. So she's going to be like you at the track. You two are probably going to be together, or maybe
pacing and...
you know, pacing. I don't know how many she'll go to be up front. I mean, I know she plans on going to the first one, but you know, I know it's stressing her out.
Yeah.
Makes you feel alive, though.
Yeah, I did say that. It's like, listen, something does go south. I was doing what I was having fun, you know, and I think, I don't know what, nobody wants to think that, but, and I, you know, not worried about that stuff, but that's one thing people got to realize is that, you know, you're living, you're doing something, we're doing something that we love. Brings
Chasing
us
it, yeah, it's passionate, and I've had that battle in my head of, you know, am I being selfish? Am I being, you know, is this the responsible thing to do as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, with a lot of people relying on me? Is it the most responsible thing to do? And is it selfish of me to say, I'm going to go do it anyways, and if it affects all these other people in my life, they'll just have to deal with it. And it's a struggle that I've dealt with in my head. And it's just, you know, I kind of look at life, you know, we get one shot at this, and, you know, yeah, there's a risk that maybe I get injured and it affects the rest of my life, or maybe even worst case scenario ends it. And do I want to do that to my children? No, I mean, definitely the answer to that is no. But I know that I also don't want to, I want to teach my kids to go out and chase what they love. And that's what I want to leave my children is that, hey, you can do hard things. You can go out and you can chase your dreams and chase your passions and get the most out of life. And that's where I'm at. And, you know, heaven forbid if something happens to me, at least my kids knew that I chased a dream, and hopefully it encourages them to do the same in their life.
Right. I mean, I know my kids want to come watch. You know, they
should.
You know, and I was like, and that's
they should see you chasing your dreams, and hopefully that affects them later in their life.
That's what I'm hoping.
If they have reservations, should I go do this? Should I go do it? And they should, whatever it is for your kids, they should go do it.
Amen.
Don't be afraid, and just do it.
That's right.
So, and all you guys listening, if you're, you know, the same applies to you. You get one trip around this, you know, through this life, and you know, don't be afraid to just go out there and do it. If it's racing, find a race bike, go race. If it's jumping out of an airplane, go do it. If, you know, whatever it is that gets you excited inside, go do it. You know, and I think we'll end on that. So thank you guys. We're excited for the race season. Stay tuned for everything that's coming up. Stay tuned for our YouTube series on how to build the bike. And our first race, the first BRL race, is in April, end of April. I believe it's the 24th, 25th. Yeah. Don't quote me on those dates, but it's like the third weekend in April at Chuckwalla Raceway in Southern California. We'll be there. We'll be ready to go. Thanks, Jay, for joining me. Thank you, Tori, for everything you do. Thanks, Jordan, for making these podcasts happen. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you.